Hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of the Amen Brother podcast. Today we are joined by, I think, collectively one of our favourite artists in the game. It's Mr. Jack Workforce.
Hi, lads. How's it going?
Easy, mate.
How's your shopping trip?
Well, I went to End. John was like, go check out End. I was like, yeah, I've bought some bits from there before. Get there, and there's just the most obnoxious clothing I've ever seen. Yeah. And loads of like tourists walking around going, oh, these look nice. I'm like, that is fucking
The thing is, if you're taking a recommendation from me, you got to understand.
Obnoxious clothing.
Yeah. I forget that you like attain status by spending obscene money on clothing.
Yeah. That's just how it works in central London.
I literally, honestly, I haven't been to Uniqlo in like 10 years. I just went there and bought a windbreaker for 70 quid and was like, yeah, that'll do, thanks.
Yeah, that could never be me. Like,
It needs to have a brand on it.
It's not even like a brand.
It's got to cost at least £600 for John to even contemplate buying the jacket.
There is a price threshold, and if it's not hitting it, I'm actually not interested. Yeah, that's true.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, I apply it to most things in life. But yeah, nice day out in London, though, nice touristy day. Was just having a good time.
Yeah, I haven't been here and been a tourist for a while, to be honest. I used to live here, obviously, and yeah, I felt off the pace is the best way to explain it. You know, when you're like traveling on the underground and you're like, I'm not like up to speed here. Like I used to do it and you'd be a ninja. You'd know every exit. You'd know like the
where
best
to stand on the platform.
Exactly,
yeah, the classic.
And it was like, I was getting lost all day basically. But I had a little wonder. It was good. Went had some Japanese food like down in London Bridge Way. Had a coffee at Monmouth at London Bridge. You know, Borough Market was absolutely rinsing coffee, really good.
Yeah.
And then just like walked into town. Just sort of like made the most of it not being too cold.
The fresh air and that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get my steps in as well. Like, I've been really conscious that I drive everywhere now that I've got a car, and I just thought I'd just get my steps in today, yeah. I
had the crazy, I can't remember if I told you about this actually, but I had the craziest tube experience like I've ever had recently. Like it was mad. It was actually mad. So I was I was just working late, and my office is in Soho, so I was working late, coming back on the tube. So bearing in mind, I'm in Tottenham Hale, so Oxford Circus, Tottenham Hale. Got on the tube at Oxford Circus, and a dude was smoking actual crack, actual crack on my carriage, and like everyone was just sat there.
No one said anything.
No one. The most London thing I've ever seen. Like, there's just a guy reading a newspaper 2 seats down from him. A couple girls on the other side just having a chat. Like, no one's saying or doing anything. And he was on the tube the whole time as well. Like, he must have got from Walthamstow because he was there.
Me and Solvent Liam, like 15 years ago, were on a bus with a guy smoking crack, and we were so taken aback by it, we like hotted him up off the bus.
Yeah.
It was buzz.
The only weird thing that I saw today was just like a girl in a camo jacket eating chicken wings, like right in the middle of the carriage, sat in the middle seat, you know. And that wasn't even that bad. My best tube story, right? This was, I remember I got off our flight at Heathrow and I was going to Perez's flat in North London. This is probably 15 years ago. I remember I got off like last flight back from whatever gig I was doing that weekend. I was on the tube, Piccadilly line. It was pretty empty. There was one dude sat opposite me. And I don't know if you remember those old Piccadilly line trains had like curved glass behind you. So like if I'm sat with my back to the tube, it like comes up and over your head, yeah. This guy's got his hands in his bag and he's sort of like looking in his bag. He doesn't know that I can see what he's doing in the reflection of this curved thing, right? You might have to bleep some of this out. But literally, he had, you remember those old school camcorders that had the fold out screen? Yeah, like an actual VHS. It's quite small, like, but still like an old school one with a tape, yeah. He's got the screen like folded out and it's basically him. Let me say this in the PG way.
No.
Basically,
I want the X-rated.
Basically, performing a sex act on another man in an England rugby shirt, right? And the reason why the reason why it's a dead giveaway is because the dude sat opposite me in a fucking England shirt.
And he's come from the act.
It's like, he's like watching the material back,
reviewing it
on his way
It was
home.
absolutely wild, and I was so young. Like I was probably like not even 21 or 20 or whatever. So like probably inexperienced in London as well. I didn't live there then. And I remember seeing it. It was really, really like shocking and like not being able to say anything because it was almost like him and I in the carriage and he's just watching this video to himself.
You're in a dangerous situation. It's just you two. Yeah.
And he's wearing a rugby shirt, so you don't know how strong he is. Might be like deceptive.
Yeah. He might have had a few cans as well, to be fair. So that's, I feel like if things become so normal to us living in the city And it's only until you leave or people from outside the city come in and they say stuff and you're like, yeah, that's just regular. But the smoking crack thing for me did actually take me aback. I was like, because, yeah, I mean, I've seen it in passing. Like, you know,
not on the tube though.
Brixton High Road, like, you see crack. Like, there's crack about, you know what I mean? Like, you see it.
Just commonplace.
Yeah, but like you're not exposed to it for such a long amount of time. Like, I actually started
breathing it in.
I was getting into my own head about it as well. Like, am I secondhand smoking crack right now?
Yeah.
Because he was super close to me as well, man. Like, that was a first. So that was fun. Cool. It's a good day in London then, yeah.
Lovely.
Nice. And
All boxes ticked. You know what? The only thing I didn't tick, the only box I didn't tick was something cultural. I wish I'd hit an exhibition or something, but I didn't quite have enough time for that.
I mean, people say that, but like, is that?
No, I do. No, I even just going to look at the permanent collection at the Tate.
Yeah.
I love going into that Rothko room. It's sick.
Next time, actually. So you know that new club, Alternet?
No.
So Tottenham Court Road, literally right outside the station, there's a new venue called Alternet. It's basically like a kind of a condensed print work. So it's like a nightclub, but it's also like a cultural centre. So the actual club, I think, is about five floors underground. But on the top floor, they've always got free exhibitions there. So like, and you can just like literally pop in and out. It's really sick, actually.
I did. Well, it's not really a cultural thing, but I was walking down Bermondsey Street and they had some like Matisse prints for sale. They were fucking extortionate. But I saw one that my mum and dad used to have in their house, and another one that reminded me, I need to get some more shit for my house because that one is proper special. It was called like Swimming Pool or something, but in French, so like La Piscine or something, and it was just sick, like proper, really, what do you call it, landscape, but like really long, and then just like this white, it's hard to explain really, but you know what Matisse paintings are like if you're listening, go Google them. They're not paintings actually, they're collages, but that's the most cultural thing I did today, to be honest.
Well, it's a lot more cultural than I've been today, and I think probably for Jack and Rich as well, so
100.
Yeah. New Zealand, you just got back from there, didn't you?
I'm still very tired.
Before I ask you about it, I'm going to apologise to Rich because literally every episode, somehow a New Zealand tour comes up because everyone's been, apart from Rich. And every time
mate.
it upsets him.
It's fine.
But it is very recent. It's very relevant. And we've got New Zealand listeners as well. So, yeah, let's talk about it.
It was
so you didn't get sick this time as well?
No. So
that was good.
For those who don't know, I went in August, got ill between London and Abu Dhabi, and it was top 5 worst experience of my life. It was basically like laying on this little bit of like AstroTurf next to those sort of like travelator things. It was the only bit I could find to lay flat.
In the worst airport in the fucking world.
Yeah, the worst. And I was just like as hot as you could get, migraine, but felt freezing. And was just like writhing on the floor for like 6 hours. It was awful. And then got on a flight to Melbourne, felt okay when I got there. Then to Auckland, they make you test at the border, but like it's self-report, so they give you the test. Did the test at the hotel, positive, and had to stay put in that hotel for a week, and then felt like absolute dog shit. Had to cancel 2 shows, and then literally after I think it was a week isolation, come out and do 3 gigs back to back, and it was an experience. This time, to be honest, I didn't even get jet lag because I was so elated to feel good when I landed. I landed in Auckland to do Northern Base, had like an hour turnaround to have a shower, and then went straight onto the site, played with Stamina on the 29th, then down to South Island, Rhythm and Alps, back to Northern Base New Year's Eve, brought in New Year's Eve in the bath at like 10:30 with a bottle of Pinot from New Zealand, obviously, because
classy.
I was absolutely knackered. And they were in this, they'd got us this really, it's like my second home. It's the one I did the isolation in, the Cordis in Auckland. Shout to them and shout to B. And I just sat in the bath and watched that David Simon thing. You know, We Own This City. Have you seen that shit? Big, strong recommendation to watch that if you've not seen it. It's very sick. Yeah. And then did a Brisbane show on New Year's Day, some downtime in Sydney with my brother. Then, some Aussie dates, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, and then I covered Lawrence because Lawrence was ill and cancelled his tour, so I did Studio and Christchurch on the last weekend. The Studio show was very special. Alex,
you said that as well, right, didn't you, Jack? You played Studio, didn't you?
In Auckland, yeah. It was sick. Yeah.
And I just drank pure tequila all night. Which was the first. I had a bit of wine in Christchurch, but like that was the first night I was actually drinking. I hadn't drank anything, but it was I've played there before, like 10 years ago, for this big Outlook tour, and it was totally different this time. Big rig. They put a new sound, mate. It was proper. Like Alex had this lineup of people that were playing all sorts. So like Headland was playing, Paige Julia, like massive shout. Honestly, she's so
story.
sick.
Yeah.
Honestly, I saw her play at Northern Bass before me, and she played last set at 1985. Sorry, second to last set, and proper vibes, proper amazing DJ. Like, check her out. She's honestly like, I think going to be the thing.
I think
really sick.
I feel like I've played a show with her before. Like I've definitely been in the same club as her before, like for sure. And yeah, she was sick then as well. So yeah, totally hear that.
Yeah, it was really good. But because I added on those extra 2 shows at the end, it meant that I'd cleared the week before so that I could get back and recover. But because I added on 2 more, I literally got back and went straight to work on the Tuesday.
Oh,
like,
Jesus.
Well, not work. I've not got a job, but like I had like as John pointed out. But I've got like I work for a youth music charity in Brighton, so I'm sort of committed to certain sessions that I can't like move around that I didn't want to. So I sort of came back and had to go straight into like running a few of those. So that was cool.
And that's teaching production, is it?
Sort of. It's like. So when they started out the charity, they're called Audio Active. I used to go when I was like 16, so like, you know, nearly 20 years ago. And it was just like you turn up, it's like a youth centre, but with like production studio, with a few like PCs in, and then some like Technics and mixer and a PA system next door. And you could literally just do what you wanted in the session sort of thing. But in the time since I've been off and like lived and grown up and done whatever, and then moved back to Brighton and got involved with the project again, it sort of moved into this sort of public health realm where like, the role has completely changed in the sense that our access and our like proximity to young people coming in wanting to make music and stuff is sort of conducive to them talking about shit that's going on in their lives. So we're sort of all trained in sort of like safeguarding, suicide prevention, all sorts of stuff. So there's that side of it where it's like, you know, kids just come in to open sessions and you're sort of there to sort of show them how to produce or rap or whatever. But then I also do these one-to-one things, which is where kids that are in sort of crisis or they've been referred in from all sorts of different counselling, and they come in because they've expressed an interest in music, and you do like 12 one-to-one sessions with them and sort of mark their progress. You sort of make a sort of like plan of what you're going to do with them, and with the hope that they see a route out of whatever it is they're dealing with. And yeah, it's been amazing, to be honest. Like, I've been full-time making music for like 10 years. And like, I haven't done something as meaningful as this work in all that time. Like, I've always really struggled with like, and I'm sure you guys do too. It's like, how do you find meaning or like purpose or value outside of like, do you know, like on a human level, like what you're sort of, and I don't mean like I'm out there like fucking Mother Teresa or anything like that. I just mean like, it feels like something that's like owed back.
Yeah, I've always said this, man, like, because we were talking about it yesterday. Like, there's a lot to be said about having a platform and, like, you know, tweeting or putting Instagram posts up about certain social issues, but it always feels a little bit empty to me.
Yeah, unless you're actually doing something on the ground about it.
Yeah,
you know?
But, like, the fact is that we've all spent all of these years in our bedrooms or whatever, just, like, honing this skill. And that's actually the most valuable thing we have that we can give back. So yeah, that's really cool to hear that. That's how
it's a sort of like, I'm not a teacher. I wouldn't say that I'm very good at like knowing something and then passing that knowledge to someone perfectly, you know. But the power is that these kids, a lot of them don't see a route out of either like poverty or trauma or whatever the fuck they're dealing with. Some of them are like totally fine. They just turn up at these sessions, they want access, and they're in a sort of like mix of totally different people with different abilities. And from a community standpoint, it means that different sort of people meet each other, which is really important. But these kids don't open up to teachers, they don't open up to care workers or like social workers, but you put them in this scenario where they're sat with someone who's like, you can do whatever you want, like I can show you how to do XYZ, whatever. And you'd be surprised, like, sometimes you just sit for an hour and a half and all you're doing is talking when you're actually there to make music and, like, you know, transferable skills. But actually, they just need someone to hear and, like, it's called mentoring, but I don't quite see it that way. But it's like to see that there's someone there listening to them and wanting, they're there for them. You know, they've made space for them.
It's like a safe space, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's so
Sounds
mad
awesome.
is that it's mad because I didn't get most of the people that work there, including me, didn't get into it thinking we'd have to deal with this level of stuff, right? But we did this really intense suicide training like a couple of months ago.
Mad.
It was so heavy, like so wild. And I, like, selfishly, I learned shitloads about it because most of it was just about how to have a conversation about a difficult subject. But yeah, so I wasn't prepared for that. And even in that training, we're sort of like chatting about the relevance and like, are we here to do this or are we here to teach kids how to make music? And the trouble is there's such a blurry line between like kids coming in and feeling safe and feeling part of a little community and part of a thing, and then them wanting to chat about troubling shit because they trust you and they're in a safe space. So you'd rather obviously be prepared. So that if that shit comes up, you've got the tools to deal with it. But then equally, it's like it's like they're occupying a space in your head all the time because like if difficult shit comes, I've had it before I'm working with a kid that's like got some difficult shit going on. It's really sort of like, if you heard it, you'd just be like, wow, this is wild. And you just like, I don't know, one day be in the shower and be going, fuck, like, what if he's XYZ, or maybe if I can help him do I can get him out of this situation. So they're basically like they're living in your head a lot of the time. So it's tough, but it's like ultimately really, really rewarding. And to be honest, in post-album cycle, I'm aware I'm blabbering on, we'll move on in a sec.
No,
but like post-album cycle, I've not been in a music frame of mind. So like I've been able to focus quite heavily on this stuff. And it's like been almost like the forefront most important thing I've been doing for the last like year or so.
Yeah, I did want to ask you actually,
Refreshing.
because obviously we talk quite a lot. And I know you said you're kind of in a little bit of a funk, which I think is natural after you've just committed yourself to such a big project. But I was going to ask, like, how do you feel like your relationship with music has evolved over sort of pre-album? Because this is your first, well, I know you did the late night series, but this is your first like workforce LP, should we say, like long player. And like, how do you
I would say Late Night Soundtrack's an LP and Certain Settings an album. In the sense that like Late Night Soundtrack was just like
more of a collection of tunes.
Well, sort of like when I started the Workforce project, I wanted to go straight in and write an album, but like most people I spoke to were like, "Don't do that. You need to build a thing first." So like most of the Late Night Soundtrack was sort of there, and I was like, "This kind of works like as a thing. I want to do it as an album," but it got like. I got talked to and was told like, yeah, don't do it like that. You need to build like the brand, all this sort of shit. Yeah. So obviously I've written albums before, so I know how difficult they are to do. I had no idea how much more difficult it would be doing it on my own. And to be honest, if lockdown or COVID hadn't happened, I might not have done one, to be totally honest.
Well, this is where the question was going, because obviously like you decided to start a new project at such an interesting time, basically, with like all of these changes happening. Obviously going from being in a duo for like 10, 15 years, then like sort of the pandemic, and then coming out and doing a solo album. Yeah, how do you feel like that's kind of affected your relationship with music?
Any answer I give you now would be so biased because I'm so like
fresh to it.
I can't. I'm not. It's more that I'm just like not asked at the minute. I'm only really in the last month or so starting to think about what I want the next project to look like. It's hard to explain, really. I'm sure everyone in here has done an album, right? Of course they have, yeah.
We have. well.
No, Rich can say he's done the album. It's just
Rich's album's done, it's just still not out yet.
It'll probably be out by the time they hear this, maybe.
Maybe
Like a month. 27th of April. Bang.
Yeah, you got it in there. You got it in there.
Maybe 29th, actually. Shit.
So maybe you lot can comment as well. But like, and I guess the degree to which this is true for people varies. But for me, I put so much into that record in terms of like my vision of like the concept, my vision of like the styles of music, and so much went into it in terms of like. And the result was like so exhausting that I feel like I'm in a spot where I need like the well is completely empty because I don't want to tread the same boards again in terms of like style, concept. Like I feel like it's like a line underneath it, and it would be really easy for me to just carry on writing the same sort of music. Equally,
do you feel like you need like, so because this is interesting, Jack maybe probably listen, this Jack might be the best person to answer this because you've done like 4 albums as well, haven't you? Do you feel like you need to drastically change your style every album?
That's a tough question.
Because reinvention is a beautiful thing, but it's also so hard to do. It's so hard to do.
It is hard to do, but like I guess I'm my own worst critic, and I also think that it's important in terms of development. I mean, just to give you an idea, like, so when we did Delay No More we wrote it in 2011 into 2012, mastered it in February, and then we had 6 months off after it came, 6 months out of the studio between like Feb and around the time that it came out in like July 2012, and that was like the longest period I'd not been in the studio and felt comfortable and been like, cool, we need a break, whatever. And then we got back in, and we had and we got a new manager at the time who was like a good friend of ours, and we were trying to do all this other like pop, and not pop, but like production for other people. We had an alternative project that was like ticking on in the background that we never did anything with, but there's still like, you know, tens of tunes that just are sat in a vault somewhere. And the second album we did was written in that period between then and when it came out in like 2015. And I don't reflect particularly positively on that second album. There's plenty of reasons for that, but the one thing I can say that was positive about it is that we didn't just try and rehash Delay No More again. So even though like I look on that record and there's not that many tunes on there that I'm like, that's really special and it still sticks with me, right? I still am quite proud that we didn't just like, rehash and go, that's our style, we'll do that forever. And my favourite acts are like that, you know? I almost like them more if they do a record that's not my favourite. Like,
I was gonna say,
fully agree with you.
It kind of frames, and it also kind of frames the classic album as more of a classic as
100%.
well.
Think about like, okay, so loads of people don't like Bon Iver's later records, right? They just like his folky, him and the guitar, right? And I love that era too, but it makes me. I think we need to sort of like encourage that reinvention because that record still exists. You can just go back and listen to that. Like we don't need it rehashed again, you know? And things only get stagnant if you don't look for reinvention or like pushing on. And I think that's part of what I'm feeling at the minute. And John, I think we've talked about this potentially, but like the reason why I feel a bit in a funk at the minute is because a lot of what I feel is going on culturally and also like on a micro level in sort of drum and bass, quote unquote, for me is not that exciting. But then I'm also aware that I'm in post-album cycle and I feel like I just said, like you've exhausted a lot of energy and like I can't use any more clips about psychedelics and reality and shit in my tunes.
Come on, man.
But because that, like I even put on a podcast the other day with this guy, Rick Doblin, who's like, he works for this organization called MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Study. And I was listening to it. I'm like, this is all very well and good. I'm really interested in this, but this has no use to me now because I've exhausted this topic in terms of...
He's done all the LSD now. You can't do any more.
Do you know what I like about this, having like, you know, been a like big fan of your journey throughout, is the fact that there are little touches though in every single album that there are like similarities and characteristics that it's just like, that's like Spectral, that's Jack Workforce, and like the consistency of those little touches is something that
ties it together.
Really makes me love your journey so much. Obviously, it's interesting to hear you say you want to do something different, which I think you also achieve. So I think there's two sides to that slightly, because whilst you're talking about the psychedelic thing, that's just a sort of seems to me to be like an evolution of certain things you did in Delay No More. Similarly with like some samples and some like spoken bits and like even the bits of you guys talking into the mic and stuff, like all of that, just it kind of naturally progresses for me. And I think that's actually something that's really quite beautiful about your journey.
I would say that all the sort of little spoken word bits are just because I've always studied albums and I like them to have more than just yourself in the tunes, but like have like a sort of narrative that sort of runs through it. So like we have always done that, and I think that's sort of like putting a stamp of ownership, but also it's like it's basically like just it's album. It's like I think currently, and this is like obvious or should be obvious to everyone, but it's like albums aren't really the format now, but I still love them, and I still reflect on like all of the ones we've done. Well, the last two, I'd say the one I just did as as Workforce, but the one we did as Spectral Soul in 2017, I just think artistically they're very rewarding because you're doing a big project that you can reflect on and go like, I'm proud of that. But actually commercially they're never, they take more out of you than they give back. Do you know what I mean? And so I think they sort of, in a sort of like financial sense, they don't reward you in the best possible way, but like creatively they do, because it's such an outpouring and such a sort of like consolidation.
They also stand the test of time as a result of that.
Well, a good one, a good album, in my opinion, does,
yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right that like it's key. I think it's key for some artists to insist on kind of taking the time and the financial risk to, like you said, because you spend years writing 15 tunes that you throw out, and for most people, sadly, not everybody, well, luckily not everybody, but for most people, within a couple of months, they're not listening to it every week or on rotation. But all the while, other people, well, you could have put out those 15 tunes as singles or as an EP or as multiple EPs and stuff, and had multiple releases, and
there'd be different tunes though.
Yeah, they'd be different.
Of course,
they would be different tunes, but also like I feel like the B-side tunes just wouldn't get made. Even.
No, of course, there's certain tunes that only live on an album, and that's the beauty of
that's
the
fun
album.
of it.
It's the journey that you get to craft with it.
But I feel like, and I think I've said this before on previous conversations about writing albums, that when we've done like press and promo around albums, is that if it doesn't feel at the end of it like you've really slogged your bollocks off, then really have you like, you know, well, maybe that's just like a one of those ridiculously like hustle standard things that's, you know, fucking dickheads on the internet say about like working 23 hours a day or whatever. But like I knew at the end of this one that I had put myself properly through the ringer with it, you know, like there was like weeks and weeks where all I would do is turn up every day to the studio, like drive 10 miles, 40 minutes or to get there, listen to it all day, and then go home. For literally probably a month or two. And it was useful only to a point, and I went well past that point. And because I did everything. I did all the art, the animation. Amy helped me with like, you know, the campaign. And that is literally it. And yeah, lockdown definitely played a role though. Like I said, like at the beginning, I'm not sure if I could have done it without lockdown. And also secondly, like the reason I'm feeling in a funk now is because I'm sort of like pining for that creative freedom that we all had in lockdown, when we didn't have a fucking clue if we were even going to go back to clubs. So it was literally like, oh, I can just write this tune in a weird pattern because it doesn't fucking matter. Because at the minute, there ain't no clubs for people to even play them in, so I might as well make something that doesn't need to be played in a club.
A listening piece.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, just weird patterns, weird arrangements. Yeah, my only actual regret with Set and Setting is that I didn't have the capacity or the ability to leave it for even longer, not even listen to it, just not touch it, and then pull it apart even more. Like, my favourite albums at the minute are the ones where, you know, it will just suddenly stop in the middle of a tune, and it will go like, the tempo will drop to like, I don't know, 2/3 what it actually was, and then it will just come back, you know, like in Kendrick records and stuff. Where it just goes off on a weird tangent in the middle of the tune.
That's really hard to do in electronic music though, man.
But so if I was going to set myself one task for the next project, if it was a big one, is to do that.
You know what's funny as well, I said this to Tommy the other day, I was I've been in a Fleetwood Mac spiral for some reason. Like, so random.
I did not have you pegged.
You know, but you know what? I actually have a music lover, man. Like, I love just well put together, interesting arrangements, interesting keys, all this stuff. And like Fleetwood Mac, that album,
Rumours.
Rumours, is crazy. It's a crazy album.
Sick
and like,
album.
obviously, like listening to the chain, I was in my head. I was like, "Why has no one made a drum and bass like equivalent of this, where it's like this kind of like ballady music that then go?" I mean, I'm sure it does this. I haven't.
You know,
I'm sure
someone's bootlegged that tune.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not talking about bootleg. I'm talking about like the idea of it, like the arrangement, like where it's like a nice. If you're gonna make an equivalent, like a beautiful liquid ballad. And then this like fat riff comes in, and it just does this like mad.
Not to say.
Oh,
like,
here we go. He's done it. He's done it. He's done it.
Hang on. No, I'm not saying I've done it in a bold way like that.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like bold though. Yeah.
But certainly, I'm very conscious in terms of like first and second drop, particularly. I know it's not quite outside of the norm format as you're talking with Fleetwood Mac, right? It's not as far outside.
Yeah.
But like certainly, I always think, right, if I've done like 2.5 minutes where it's like a floaty liquid tune, there's been a few times where like on the second drop, I'm like, right, well, let's fucking ag it out a bit. This still works. Like I did it in Fragments. It's like the first tune I ever released as Workforce, I think. Maybe the second. Can't remember. But that one, I remember having the first drop, like copied and pasted over to the second, and then being like, nah, kind of, it requires something a bit different here. But then, that sounds like I'm doing something like Fleetwood Mac. I'm not saying that for 1 second.
No.
And it could be pushed even further.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about like just balls to the wall, like, and like not subtle change, just like really. Yeah. But it's like I said, I think in electronic music, with instruments, like, and a band, it's kind of easier to tie those segments together in a way.
But if the only thing that stays the same is the drums.
Yeah, but the thing is, in drum and bass, like the style of music you write in terms of liquid, the style of drum you write, like even from a kind of transience and punchiness point of view, it would be hard to find that perfect. Maybe not for you or for like Alex or for like some of the top dons, but like I would struggle to like find the right drum pattern that would carry over so seamlessly.
I would say,
both of those.
But it doesn't necessarily always have to, though.
Doesn't have to.
I would argue. I mean, if you're switching up the energy like quite drastically, you can get away with doing that.
I'm just saying, like, if you had a neuro snare of a liquid track and then it went to like a heavy drop, it ain't gonna run, man.
Yeah, but it sounds to me like it sounds to me like in your head as a concept it can't work. But I reckon that's where like the interesting space is when you just try it.
Yeah, but the thing, I haven't even just given it a go, and I think that is worth exploring.
But I think also there's it's something that I've always wrestled with drum and bass, and I've always found it difficult because whenever you try to do something a bit different, it's not, you know, the sort of, I don't mean this, and this is me too, I mean this from, I would have the same opinion as a young drum and bass fan, but when people try and do stuff a bit different, it does tend to switch people off.
Yeah.
Because
that's bravery though, I think, man. You have to like...
I would always, for me, like, I would always want to appeal to the minority of people who want to hear it than try and pander to the majority who just want you to play fucking drum and bass and make drum and bass only.
Yeah.
The other thing I think about, in terms of what I was saying about like Kendrick madness in the middle of an album, is that you're also constrained by format in drum and bass in the sense that like you've got to have a certain length of intro for DJ.
Number of bars. Yeah.
I do think that's got sort of going a bit, and I'm sort of pleased to see that because, you know, you can make something DJable if you know what you're doing. Like, even if it's got a weird, like there's tunes like lots of tunes now, instead of having a 16 breakdown or like a 16 middle section, it will be an 8
or a 24.
Yeah, or something random like that. And it's like, if you know what you're doing in like Record Box, or even if you don't use that, you just chop it up. You can make that DJable easy, like no problem.
Yeah.
And most people, like, there's loads of people DJ without fucking headphones now. So like, you know.
I was going to ask though, actually, because you made a point earlier about that Fragments tune. Well, it wasn't really more of a statement, but like something I noticed that you do really well actually is like your blend of light and dark in your tunes is really apparent.
Would you not say that that's just like always been the case? I would say that there's a case to be answered that I sort of learned that through the Spectral Soul years, and I just carried it on.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a workforce thing. I'm just saying just generally the projects you've been involved in. I think that may be a standout characteristic actually. Like you always like these really beautiful liquid tunes, and then suddenly this really like distorted thing just comes out of nowhere. And it's just like it's like kind of jarring in a way, but in a nice way. I'm
quite interested in having sounds that sound a little bit out of place but still work.
Yeah.
I always gravitate towards music like that has something like that.
Memorable.
Was that inspired by another artist, or is this something that you kind of developed over time?
I guess it's probably a D-Bridge thing.
Yeah,
to be honest, he's always done it. Yeah, I think like at the time that we were all coming through, like me and Dave and Alex, and probably Icicle at roughly the same time with Shogun, that minimal thing was really happening. And so we were all making different styles of music. So it wasn't like when you write a liquid tune, you can exclude all the other sounds and styles that you like. It was almost like, how can we mishmash them together? It was almost a challenge to sort of see how that could be done, whether it could be done. And yeah, Darren's a really good example of someone who's, and DK as well, like early days, you know, those sort of like more aggressive sounds that, and Illogic and Raf as well, like that era, you know, they write
actually, super, definitely them actually, you
know, like super deep Liquid tunes that would suddenly have a switch into like a weird bass, and even like old Paradox and Nucleus tunes. I used to like. There's this one called Love Her, which I don't even know if you can buy the digital. It's proper sick tune, and it was one of those like quite deep. That one's a bit more headsy, not Liquid, but like, yeah, I was always just really interested in trying to marry those two sort of palettes of sounds together where possible.
Let's talk a bit more about that era, because I think something all three of us probably do want to talk about is that kind of golden era of Shogun, and seeing as me and Jack.
Oh fuck! I thought you were going to say golden era of like Caliber and DK and D-Bridge in like the early 2000s.
That's your guys' time, man. I was too young for that, so I don't know about you. Yeah, but now obviously me and Jack are signed to Shogun at the moment, so it's a big part of that, I guess, was because of the era you guys came from. For sure. Like, what was that like at the time, man? How did that all kind of like happen? Yeah, what was it like being in that kind of crew at the time?
How did you feel about going so downhill since then?
Yeah, and how did you feel about us taking the torch and dumping it in some water?
It's hard. Like at the time, I don't think we quite appreciated how good we had it, because I don't. Well, maybe this does still happen. But when the Shogun event was on, everyone would be at the club from 10 until 5, 6 in the morning, particularly the ones at the end. It felt like a proper community of people who were all there, and it was proper competitive as well. Like, like I would say we all helped each other's development. It was so, and to be honest, even now, like when Alex sends me music, I'm like, honestly, often he'll send it to me and I'll be listening to it just going, for fuck's sake. This is like, okay, I've got to find something now.
I've got to do something.
Like,
yeah.
I remember like during lockdown, he sent me that Desanka tune. That's what spawned. I went to the studio, I was like, I can't leave this week until I've done something on that flex that I feel like is getting towards that level. I mean, he just sets an unreal level, in my opinion. Like, and not to lick his ass, I was with him last weekend. I've told him this to his face. Like, honestly, I feel like he's one of the best. Like, I mean, in our world, like,
I think that's a fair statement across the board, to be honest.
So I'm not saying for one second that I can like match Perez, right? But I'm just saying that that competitive nature between him and I still goes on now.
What was the tune you're going to say of yours?
Broken.
Yeah.
And What Sustains on the album. So they were both just like, right, now you've got to spend 3 days finding a piano sample and you need to make something that rolls like that one does.
Yeah.
Broken
was probably my favourite off of the whole album, to be honest.
Shall I tell you like something that, like, it's not a regret, but it's something that I've realised since I put the record out, is that the tunes that got the most focus, by virtue of obviously being musical and that kind of being the ones that like do well on Spotify and what have you, and UKF tend to take those more often, so they tend, in my opinion, to get more mainstream attention. I realised that like people who were coming or discovering my music now or then, you know, middle of last year, I hope I'm not getting an impression that that's just because this was my problem, like with Spectrosol, is that towards the end we just got put in a fucking box, and towards the end I was just like, fuck this, man. I'm not like, no, like, and you would find, like, I would find at gigs, if I was playing anything non-Liquid, people would just like, sometimes like people would come up and go, what are you playing? Like, where's the fuck? And I'm just like, now I'm like rebelliously like, no,
just
like,
play Jump Up the whole time.
Yeah, I mean,
to be fair, that Napes tune,
I'm making a serious point here, John, and you're that Napes tune is a killer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I became aware that like those ones were becoming the focus tunes.
Yeah,
and it's not that comfortable for me. Like
me and Tom have suffered with a very similar thing, and even like when people write bios about us, so like promo for a night or whatever,
referred to as Liquid.
It's like referred to as like Liquid Dons or something. I'm just like, I don't want that title.
No,
I literally don't want to be called that.
I find that it's important to be like restless and to not sort of allow that to become. I'm not saying that you have, but it certainly happened with us as Spectrosol that it was like you couldn't escape because it was just like you were allowing other people to sort of write your bio and write and determine what you're about and who you're about and put you in a box. And I feel like our scene, quite unquote, I fucking hate that word, but our scene is really good at putting people in a box and going, you fucking stay there and don't do anything different because all your gigs will dry up or everyone will think you're a fucking loser. They just want to hear the same thing over and over and over again. And that, if you do cater to that, you can do really, really well. And you just do repeat, rinse and repeat, and just do what people expect.
Is that one of the reasons your sound sort of has evolved to be a bit darker? Because
right. So I don't know how well you know Spectrosol catalogue, but like it's totally the same as Workforce now in terms of its diversity.
Yeah. It literally goes from one extreme to the other. Yeah.
It's all there. No.
I'd say, for me personally, I'd say it's a little bit more liquid than what you do as Workforce.
I would accept that, but I think that the breadth of like the styles are
100%. Yeah.
But even then, it was just like you are the liquid guys. Like we expect. Do you know what I mean?
But also, going back to that whole show,
like that, but yeah.
But I just mean. If you write one tune that gets the most attention,
you get people to that.
People are just like, what's the? They turn up thinking I'm going to hear an hour of that.
Yeah,
but like Delay No More, you think like there's like to me there's so many different genres of music in that. Like
most of it totally un-DJable as well. So like, I remember like we mastered it in February, and I went straight to New Zealand to do this tour. And I didn't play a fucking single tune off the record because I was just like, none of this works in a club. You know, like.
Well, going back to that kind of Shogun early days thing, do you reckon part of the reason that may have happened was because you had everyone kind of fit into their own little space? Even though you said everyone tried to mishmash, everyone did kind of fit into their little space a little bit with like you, IC, Alex, even like when Comics was releasing on there and Break did a few bits on there. I don't know, it felt like there was quite a wide range of styles of DJ on that label at the same time, and maybe you filled that liquid space quite nicely.
I don't know the answer to that because
it's such a good question. Yeah.
Who's keeping score? I just think it's
only John.
How like that's like trying to ask me to be objective about something that I was too close to. I couldn't possibly say. It's like, it's hard to know, and maybe it's not even a reality. It's just like how I felt.
Yeah.
You know. And that's why, to be honest, it felt really good to sign out with Untitled Horn as like our last ever tune. Cause it's like, fuck you, mate. Like, there's like something that you maybe wouldn't expect from. I reckon people heard that and wouldn't have ever thought that it was us.
No.
When it first started getting like doing the rounds, and by pure chance, that happened to be the last thing we ever did.
Last thing you made and released.
It was the last thing we ever released. It wasn't.
Yeah.
We made most of that.
Very old tune, that wasn't it?
Yeah,
it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, so we made that EP, that whole EP, before the album. What was it called? How We Live.
Yeah.
We made it before that, and we signed it with Marcus. And we'd said to Marcus, like, we want to do this EP after the album. Is that cool? And he was kind of like, I'd rather you didn't because it feels like castaway tunes. Anyway, yeah, so like I had text Marcus and been like, Solar's the last label we haven't released on. I'd played Luke LSB Untitled Horn in the studio, and he's like, Marcus will really like that, send it to him. And I sent it to him, and like literally, came back straight away and was like, we can do that one, nice. And then we just built the EP that came out, the Untitled Horn EP, was exactly as planned for Solar, but in the interim, obviously Marcus passed away. So it was written before the album, but then came out after, just because that was always the plan. So yeah, it was like the last thing that we released, but not the last thing we made, sort of thing. Yeah.
It's a great EP. That I remember it came out, I think, about a month, because I went out and toured in Canada. I went and did 2 shows out with David and Andy from Technomatic.
Oh yeah,
and I think this was about a month before it dropped, and it was literally like there was 3 shows, and it kept getting played.
It was a dub for ages,
and we kept asking him for it, and he was like, "Nah," and he just kept like starting the sets with it, and it went off every single time. It was a banger. It still is a banger.
Tune of the year.
I remember like we'd done this we were working with this is going to sound really fucking snooty and sort of like, we were doing this thing. We were working with this singer from LA who had like a sort of new management team, and it was all like, she was kind of shit hot, and we were working on this, we're doing this session with her, and we'd written a couple of tunes one day, and we'd used the drums that were in Untitled Horn and the sort of like big room-filling horn sound that's in Untitled Horn. And I remember like either the morning after or like maybe the day after that, literally just having a shower, and like, you know when you have a little you get shower thoughts, yeah? It just went, what if you made a drum bass tune with that sound? Like, because I'd wanted to make a tune that filled up the whole room. That was like the whole intention with that tune. And I remember getting down the studio super early before Dave got there and sort of like starting to put it together and being like, yeah, this is going to work. Because it was literally just lifting the drum break from a really slow thing, sort of like time mapping it.
Yeah.
And then writing the riff around the sound that we had like mapped out over the keys. Yeah. And can't really remember making it. I just remember like those ones always come together quite quick. So it's probably like a day. And yeah, we didn't think anything of it. It was like sat in a folder for fucking ages, just like, not really sure. And it was only when we wrote that Silence tune with Luke, he was in the studio with us for a couple of days, and we, played him that. And he said to send it to Marcus because he would like it. And yeah, he was right. So we went from there with that. And then that tune that we did with Luke became part of that package. And we also did that other tune that was on
the
How We Live
album.
Yeah, in that same session.
Was it Wrong to Love You?
Yeah, that's it. Really bait vocal.
Using a nice way. Classily used, though,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Do you want a drink, by the way, Jack?
I'm parched. Yeah, hang on.
Yeah. Literally, I've got all
How
this selection
itself.
if you want to have any of these. Questionably tasty drinks is what we're calling this segment.
Yeah.
Questionably tasty drink.
Rich is basically doing a thing where he
Rich
just
is
buys
Offie Blag,
the weirdest combo of drinks.
and it's going to get worse and worse
It's just
because
gonna
whatever's left over from the episode before
Carries
gets brought
over.
back.
So soon it's going to be called Rich's Bargain Bucket.
Basically.
I don't think I want any of them.
I-
They've
yeah.
they've all got too much sugar in
want
it.
a
Yeah,
super
yeah.
malt.
To be fair,
I don't think I've ever tasted one of those.
shit.
You know
I got that
super
because we talk about like Caribbean food and shit like that. That's
That's
a
a
thing,
staple.
innit?
Yeah, that's a staple. But to say now on podcast, Caribbean food isn't the healthiest. Like we use
the best though, innit?
It's the best, but it's
Come on.
not the healthiest. Yeah.
Yeah, so John and I have spoke, and I think maybe you as well, Rich. Over the course of 2020 to the present day, I have got my jerk marinade down to a fine
Come
it's
on.
fucking art.
It's been a journey.
Yeah, and I I wouldn't say I've taken tips off you for it, but I've definitely like been sending pictures to John of like, how do you think this looks?
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah, and I've been making hot sauce loads. I don't know if anyone's been watching on my Instagram, but I've been making fermented hot sauces for like
I
2 or
told
3
Rich
months.
about this. Yeah.
Mate.
That was the conversation we had because
I was
I
gonna
made
say,
I made
'cause-
one, didn't I? And you were like, "What was the recipe?" Like, yeah.
But honestly,
you've gone beyond now.
the
haven't you?
fermentation next, it's just, yeah. So
That's such a like mid-30s like just something to get into. It's just like fermenting shit.
well,
yeah.
do you know what it was? Like, I've always loved cooking. Like, if I wasn't in music,
Hang on, don't answer that question because that's a question for later.
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay.
Can I just preempt it? You don't have to ask it.
Ruining my segment.
You don't have to. I can just preempt it. Okay,
Yeah.
John, yeah, I'll answer that question, John. Sure. So I studied graphic design, and while I was studying graphic design, Spectrosol was kicking off. Anyway, so if I wasn't doing music, I'd probably be doing graphic design or something in food because I like while I was at uni, I just got well into cooking. And again, it was like competitiveness with my housemate who's now like a really banging chef. And yeah, last year, after the album, obviously not being in studio mode, not writing any music and sort of needing a break and being okay with it for the first time ever. Like I usually feel really immense pressure if I'm not writing music, but this last year I felt like super cool about not being in. I've just got, just been like, I sometimes wake up and I just go, what do you fancy cooking today? And it won't even be necessary to eat it. I'll just make it. And towards the end of last year, you know, like in our industry in December, people just don't respond to emails and nothing gets done. I was like 1 foot out the fucking door at home doing my tax return and like making hot sauce. Like,
Yes.
I'd grown chilies in my, me and my missus were very fortunate enough to buy a house at the end of last year, end of 21. and it had this porch that's south facing, and it's fucking boiling in the summer, so it's perfect for growing chilies. So I just had all these chili plants. Like, you literally walked through a bush of chili plants to get in the front door. Habaneros, cayenne, like jalapenos, Scotch bonnets, like all sorts. Yeah. So and towards like December time, I'd collected all this load of like habaneros and stuff. And I just thought, my brother-in-law had said, "Oh, have you tried fermenting?" I was like, "What's that?" And I got on YouTube, started watching loads of videos. You know, it's just endless fucking like black hole of videos. Anyway, yeah, fermentation, mate. It's just it's just salt and like chilies. You leave it for ages, and then you just mix it with like vinegar and some fruit afterwards in a blender, mate. Honestly, everybody at Christmas got Scotch bonnet, mango, and dried apricot hot sauce, and it was rinsing. I've been talking to a friend today actually about how I can try and combine this in a session in a night, like as part of like a must-make brand. I'm talking about like.
Would you not like shot your own? Like
maybe, but I'd like to do it like separate from like music.
Yeah.
It just feels a bit like pound shop. Yeah, tacky. Yeah. But I have thought about like daytime. I think there's a real appetite for like aged ravers like me, who want to be in bed by like midnight, right? But would still like to make a day of it. Yeah. So so imagine if you had like a grill outside of a club. I'm thinking like Volks Club in Brighton is my ideal because it's right on the seafront. I know the guys are proper safe guys. Imagine like a barbecue during the day on the out, and I'm on the grill, and then like whoever's DJing in the evening, you just get them to do an alternative set of like whatever the fuck outside during the day in the summer, and then we just all move inside, have a little dance till midnight 1, and then we're all fed. We've had a nice drink and a nice dance, and everyone's at home.
That's actually a sick idea.
Do you know what I mean? If anyone fucking steals that after hearing this,
I was gonna say, mate, maybe we'll set the wheels in motion before we put this out.
There's that house DJ who did it. What's his name? Seth Troxler.
Did he do it?
Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me.
He was like a proper. He used to. He was an actual pro chef, I think, or something like that. And he was like photos of him on the grill, and then goes in and DJs. And maybe with drum and bass, it's not like not like conducive, but like I can totally see it working.
I think it's a good idea, man. And honestly, like even just tied to what we were talking about with Mosey about the whole like wanting to basically party less and do less drugs and just drink less, just lifestyle changes. That sort of event is very welcome. Like,
see, I have a sort of like weird view on that, which is
we should do drugs during the day.
Okay, let me just. I mean, I don't think you're going to stop people yet. There is people have an appetite to take drugs.
You're going to do it. Yeah, fair enough.
I'm definitely not advocating the use of drugs, but I would say that, like, and caveating this by saying I've not taken any drugs in a long time, but I do feel like it has an impact on the music because, and it certainly has an impact on club culture, like 100%. Because
these are all questions I was going to ask. This is amazing.
Well, great. I'm just preempting your brain. Yeah, so
you are great.
Like, the smoking ban had a big impact, and I would say more so, and probably about the same. But like the phone thing is having a big impact.
Yeah, I saw you post about the.
It's fucking dystopian.
You know what's funny?
It's so weird.
Tom sent me that same picture on the other day. And he was like, "Look how mad this picture is."
What is this picture?
It's the one
Printworks.
Printworks, and like
I think I saw
every person.
Yeah, because someone died. It was
every single person in the room.
Yeah.
After Maxi Jazz died, and someone played one of their tunes at Printworks, basically, and there was a video clip of just like every single person in the club. Yeah,
I actually had an idea about this recently, but I don't know if I want to say it online because it's quite a good one. But if we want to cut it out. But I reckon people should go back to the days of like, you remember when we went to a rave when we were younger and like someone actually filmed the entire rave and then you could buy like a CD of it afterwards. Why the fuck are we not doing that? So people put their phones down
because
and you get a real high quality memory. Because just a short, it doesn't even have to be long, but
it's
like,
not even a memory for most people, right? It's about saying that they've got a handheld video that proves that they were there, and no one else has got that. That's all it is for most people.
I don't know if you saw this, but Darren did something for an E1 event where he did NFTs for everyone who attended to sort of like prove their attendance, right?
Sick.
I thought that was quite a cool idea.
Yeah, that is quite cool.
So I think there's some obvious, I mean, it's all debatable what the actual how it affects the outcomes, right? But for me, it's like no one's invested in the dance anymore at all. They're not there to have like an out of body experience or to like really get involved with it. Because how can you be connected in a room when you're doing that. Like
one of the best experiences I had was when we did that back-to-back at
Fold, yeah, exactly. And there was no phones, man.
No phones there.
But I think it is a Western thing because you know, go abroad and it's not quite the same. Like you haven't got the odd. I mean, I know Printworks is a really beautiful and like spectacular thing to see, so it's not a wonder that people want to be like, fucking hell, like let's film it. But I wonder what, you know, for me it's like, maybe I'm just showing my age, but and maybe it's like that romanticism for like what it was when I was raving. But I just remember like you go to a night and you wouldn't move from the dance floor all fucking night.
Yeah, you would literally be glued to your spot for the whole evening.
And it's like that's why I'm saying there's like a sort of like parallel between the smoking ban and the phone thing. Is ultimately it leads to disconnection to the dance floor. It's why we need all these like massive production in rooms, is because people don't want to go and stand in a dark room that's got no production anymore just for the music. Like the sound system isn't enough. It's actually
you have to incentivize them with other things now.
And also like
that is sad.
We live like through this sort of like very visually dominant world where it's kind of out of kilter in terms of like our balance of all of our senses. Like what we see, it's like
I feel like a well-designed club can still do that. Like for example, I know people have opinions on the sound system, but like Phonox, for example, it's so well put together because it's literally one room and then the tiny smoking area. So the whole time you're basically in that club the entire time, and it's very rare you see like a foot traffic exchange of like smoking club to dance floor.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
Vice versa. Like, that's the one club I can think of.
Just some like nice,
nice
clean red laser game.
Yeah,
we're just giving that
too over the top.
We're literally just finding more reasons why that is the best club.
But I think that might be the reason why it is my favorite club to play at, because it's like it kind of just like locks in that vibe the whole time.
Phonox, if you're listening though, can you sort out your MC monitor situation, please? Thanks.
There it is. There it is.
I guess my feeling about this is, and this sort of goes back to like wanting to do something about it and like having a high standard, is like what should be being done to sort of foster and engender that next generation and sort of show to them, look, if you put your phone away, and maybe, I'm not advocating the use of drugs, but like if you throw those in, you're gonna have a fucking incredible like just. I remember speaking to certain, I won't name them because I don't want to name them and then misquote it, but I remember speaking to certain people in drum and bass world who had no real interest in being a part of it or like even in the music, but maybe like long before our time, we were talking like early 90s, go to a rave and take acid or whatever, and suddenly it changed their whole fucking life, and it's like they love it. And it heightens you sort of, I'm not. I wouldn't even say I've had really positive drug experiences, but I know for sure that it's like it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I said this on the last podcast. I do think and we had a conversation about this. I was saying, obviously, I think it's almost impossible to separate the two. Yeah, I really do. Like, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't really know how I feel about it.
Because I think I disagreed with you, but I think like upon reflection, I think it's exactly the same. I agree with you, but it is, I think, unfortunate. But
well, I don't know if it is. It's weird.
But then, I think there's kind of two sides of this debate, right? So I think, and this is maybe a slightly different debate. I'm like, I accept that all human beings, all cultures in all human cultures have a desire to take drugs and take things that change their mindset, right? So, for me, the problem is like our policy around it. This is a whole different debate, right? But I would be like, my stance on it would always be like, people want to do it, you ain't going to change that. So how do we make it safe? And to bring that back to like what we're talking about within the club, it's like you have to create a safe space that people are going to take drugs in, first of all, in my opinion. But if they're not going to take drugs, or we're trying to advocate sort of healthier club habits, what do we do to heighten the experience, and what don't we do to sort of negate it, which is the phone thing. Like if you're going to go to a club and you're not going to either get pissed or inebriated in some other way, do you think getting your phone out is going to help you connect with the music any better? Because I think it's like the opposite. What are you going there for? Like I don't think people think about that anymore.
It ties into the whole social media, the need for validation on social media. So that camera does weird stuff. Because like you said, Jack, I think Jack, you said it basically. It's to prove you were there. Yeah. And basically like, look, I've done this. Because Instagram's all about like highlights, or I guess TikTok now. We are old. It's TikTok now, isn't it? TikTok is all about showing the world the highlights of your life and being like, I do all this really cool stuff. You haven't done this. I'm cooler than you. I've got a social status. And it's really like, until that's not a thing, I don't think this phone thing is going to go away.
Do you think, like, I think a lot of this, there's a lot of parallels between sort of the music that's made, well, the overarching culture is the culprit of the whole thing, innit? But then, like, shortening attention spans, it's sort of like a weird chicken and egg situation. It's like, do short attention spans breed short music, or does short music breed short attention spans and sort of insert? Do you see what I mean? So there's like this whole thing going on.
This.
I would argue it's definitely the short attention span breeds short music, because even though you could argue,
sure, but why did attention spans get so short?
I think it's vice versa.
I think
because the thing is, even though
social media,
even though the short music might be breeding the short attention span, I think there's also then short videos and short.
But I just mean, all I mean to say is, like, I'm not saying you're wrong at all, and it's not even a but. It's like the short attention spans have come from somewhere, and they can either be sort of trained out by like no one making really short, snappy music, which it has a place. Obviously, it always has.
Yeah,
but it means like. And again, I'm aware that I'm just probably sounding like an old sort of fuddy-duddy who's like, oh, just get into the music, listen to the whole tune. Like, you don't need to mix every 30 seconds, blah, blah, blah. But there's something about like the repetitiveness of the music that we make that gets people into that state in the club, particularly when they're off their tits.
I was going to say,
like repetitiveness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you can't get that with three. Well, you struggle to get that in 3 minutes.
Also,
but in
the
5
type
minutes,
of drug
6 minutes
has a big effect on that as well.
Yeah,
because
so there's an overprevalence of
we're going to go there
cocaine.
again.
I'm going to say
the special K word.
Yeah, it's like, but it's true though, man. Like, yeah, I really feel like the type of Anyway,
I think that
but what I was going to say was, you've read the slot machine theory, in terms of how social media works and why it's so effective. Okay, so basically a bunch of silicon. I'll try and keep it really short, but abridged version. It's like the reason every single motion on a social media page is basically swiping up and down is because it's like pulling a handle on a slot machine.
Right.
And basically every time you do it, it refreshes. It's like your brain is seeking a new reward. So like every time you refresh, it's like, oh, something new is going to come up. I'm going to get rewarded. That's how Silicon Valley designed social media to be. And that's why the attention spans are getting shorter, because it's like every 5 seconds, if you watch people's behavior on on their phone, they're constantly moving their hand around and not really looking at anything.
I reckon
that's that theory,
I reckon I've got a very hot take that no one's had before.
Okay, here we go.
I think that social media has a lot to answer for.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You know what? That's
funny that.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And at the same time as well, I don't want to completely kill it, because it has done a lot of good things as well. But I think the overarching effect on generations as we get older is getting worse and worse, because they're getting born into it. Whereas I feel like we're all roughly the same age. I feel like we were born 1 foot in the analog age, 1 foot in the digital age, where we can make a cognitive like separation between the two.
I feel like I've had this effect where I come into like the banter drum and bass podcast and make it a really serious conversation.
The thing is, I was
after last time, though, it's kind of nice to mix it up.
We've had depth in other episodes of the podcast. We go deep dive.
Do you know what I was also thinking? I was thinking it was nice how like last time we were like, we're on this like health thing, and now we're like encouraging people to do drugs.
Yeah.
Basically, like, whatever you want to do, guys.
This is what we were saying last one. Okay, it's like you choose, isn't it? You choose.
So true.
I would say that like I would never, and this is a conversation I had with my missus, because she's like very anti-drug, right? But I would never tell anyone that they should take them, or that if they ask me should I would say yes, because that's not like, I feel like everyone needs to make their own decision. I just feel like I'm more in an adult place in the sense of accepting that everybody has some degree of desire to experience it. So why don't we just make it safe? Like, that's it. I'm not saying that we should all take drugs. I'm just saying, once you accept that there's like an innate thing in human beings to want to take mind-altering substances, then you can deal with it very differently. And
100%.
I was reading, actually, no, I'm not going to say what I was going to say. It's going to get too deep.
I think
it was about psilocybin and how like fungi was the first like microorganism on the earth, and there's all these connections between. I'm sure you know about
evolution.
Yeah, you know about
eating shrooms.
It basically,
the drunk ape theory, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else. So I will
acid,
crack cocaine. What was your thoughts?
I think the point is really the freedom is what we're. You should be just free to be able to make your own choices, and that's kind of it.
Like. I think most people would have me pegged as a libertarian. Yeah,
I think so.
Ben Shapiro, eat your heart out. Cheers.
I did want to talk about Must Make a bit because you mentioned your amazing barbecue, hot sauce, rave idea crossover.
Yeah, don't nick it.
Just generally speaking, because obviously I know a lot of artists now start their own labels to kind of just push their own music and kind of, you know, as a way of having kind of complete creative freedom, or obviously making more money as well. You've obviously taken on someone in your label, old Azzy.
Yep.
The boy, Aiden. We all love him. He's super young.
Yeah, I mean,
super talented.
I was actually quite surprised when you came down and did the live stream, and I've not put it out yet.
Which hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I've been away. Sorry, I've been really, really busy. I was surprised seeing him sort of in the wild over here.
Yeah.
And the amount of people who came up and were like, fucking hell, who's this kid?
Yeah.
Because, like, he's just, like, he's super down to earth, as most Kiwis are, but his music is really mature, and he's a proper sick DJ. Like,
I think that live stream, when it comes out, is going to put a lot of people on notice. Like,
yeah,
his set was crazy.
Yeah,
it was actually crazy.
I don't think, like, he would mind me saying this, but he'd had, like, quite a few beers.
Yeah, he's a Kiwi 21-year-old or 22-year-old.
Like, we got to the club at like 4 o'clock that day, and they were doing a line clean. There was like 40 pints on the bar. So between like 4 and he played at like 11 or 10 or something.
Yeah.
You know,
he was just tanking it.
It was wild. But like, yeah, so it's a really funny story because obviously like you just said, most people start their label, and I did the same. Like, I started it just because out of necessity, I didn't want to work with another label. I was sick of working with other labels. Wanted to be autonomous, and I'm a proper difficult person to deal with. I don't know who knows that. Probably some people. But Jeremy from the Upbeats just sent me an email or sent me a text saying, "Oh, I've got this kid who's got some music locally. Like, can I send it to you?" I was like, "Of course." So, yeah, got this email from this kid, and he was like very politely sort of asking me, you know, have you checked that music yet? I'm like, really busy, mate. So I'm like, whatever, I will, 100%. And then when I got around to it, I was just listening to it going, yeah, cool. This is like really raw and good. And that Take It Back tune, I remember like sort of listening to it loads and being like, I can't not do something with this because I just think it's so... For a first batch of demos, I was like, mate, these are fucking great, like really... different. And I know I said earlier that I was feeling a certain way about the music being quite homogenous and like samey. I feel like he's sort of like, he's not doing anything that's like wildly original, but certainly in the context of what's going on at the moment, it's very different and very...
I always say it's hard to categorize what his sound is in terms of like, it doesn't quite fit into any of these like nicely, neatly packaged subgenres.
Yeah,
and I think it's a good thing, basically.
And I have to say, like, it definitely gives me more energy because I think part of the thing that happens as you spend more and more time in, I would say, obviously in drum and bass music, that's all I can speak on experience-wise, is that it becomes more, you tend to focus more on the technical stuff, and the playful nature of it sort of evaporates a bit. And when someone like that sends you their music and it's so playful and so like technical, there's so little consideration for all the technical shit. He sort of is the process that I talk about on my podcast about creative process, in the sense of like trying to put technical stuff aside and really just focusing on ideas, right? And it's the hardest thing to do, where I feel like in the amount of time I've been doing it now, it's very difficult for me to move on if technically something's not working or if it's not sounding as polished as I want it to, right? But he just sort of like writes great music, sends it over, and often it's like, yeah, I'm not sure about this. I'm like, this is fucking great. Like, wow. So yeah, it was total coincidence, wasn't it by design or intention. That first EP came together super quick, and then I think he sort of overthought the second one. It took a bit more of a while, and he wasn't as confident. But the 6-tracker that's coming out, the second single's probably out now, and by the time this goes out, it might be out. It's like middle or end of Feb. It's excellent, and it's like a move on from the first one, and he's really got the bit between his teeth. Like he's almost got the one after done now.
Yeah,
so we're sort of working on that now.
I think that move to Bristol and living with other producers and stuff as well is probably going to help him quite a lot. Just in terms of like that house is crazy. It's like him, Envy, and Chesko. They all live together.
But mate, honestly, like he's fucking revered in New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
They absolutely they love him so much.
When I was out there, sorry, Rich. When I was on tour, when I was on tour out there, and obviously there was that one show all three of us were meant to play. Do you remember?
Yeah.
The ski festival, because he came on after me. And like legitimately, I was like pretty gassed. I was like, yeah, sick, man. Like,
And then the
smash
crowd
it.
arrived, basically.
Basically, yeah. Like the crowd was pretty full for my set, and then he came on, just like fucking packed out, and I was like, oh, is that how it is? Yeah.
Safe New Zealand.
Humble.
Safe New
Well,
Zealand.
even that same tour. So after that date, that whiteout date, I was supposed to do the ones, but I had COVID, obviously.
He sold out thing on his own, didn't he?
So
Yeah.
well. Come on. What had happened was, like, I landed on the Thursday and was supposed to play Neck of the Woods on Friday. I get there, Ben Ciccarelli's like, yeah, it's sold out. It's like
Do
pretty
his
much sold
accent,
out.
Can't do Ben's voice.
No.
Shout out Ben, by the way.
Shout out Ben, love Ben.
Greatest.
And Tarly and
Yeah.
B and Gareth in Auckland.
All of them.
Big
yeah,
guys.
shout out, yeah.
Yeah, so Ben's like, yeah, it's nearly sold out. I'm like, I was absolutely gassed. Obviously, felt terrible. Felt absolutely fucking terrible because I had COVID. And then, yeah, in hindsight, after the fact, so that show was sold out and Hyde in Christchurch was sold out. But they were the ones that Azzy was on. And in hindsight, I was like, fuck, like I was like getting all chest puffy, like, yeah, those two shows are sold out. But actually, like, Azzy's on there.
Yeah.
And he's like, they
love him,
I get so many messages from Kiwis being about him. Like, honestly, whenever we post stuff about him, it's just like Kiwis popping up, like responding to stories and shit. They just like really get behind him, and yeah, it's good. He's a buzz to work with. He's it's inspiring as well because I remember when I was his age, and yeah, it was a buzz then, and I can obviously like speak from my own experience about the transition from being his age and to the age I am now, and the journey that I took, and trying to advise on the pitfalls and the lessons I learned, essentially. And I never thought that I would want to take that on ever. Like, I really kind of selfishly and indulgently just wanted to work on my own shit and just that be it. But now that we are working together, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. So I guess, is the plan to take on more Azzies? Or is it just literally, if you hear, basically if someone sends you something good enough, you'll consider it?
Yeah, it's going to be kind of on merit, I guess. But like, I think as you get older, you realise that you don't just want to work with people just because they're good, but they have to be people that are good people. Like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, nobody wants to work with dickheads.
no. And I think that's actually, honestly, like when Jeremy introduced me to him, and I knew he was from Christchurch, I've got two like quite tight mates from Christchurch who I've just got to know very, very well over the time I've toured there. And I just messaged them both and was like, yeah, I've got some music from this kid in Christchurch. It's really good. I just wanted to check I just wanted to like, you know, see if you like know who he is. Not vouch for him, but just
Is
be
he
like,
a Nazi
yeah.
or
Yeah.
sort of thing.
And they
yeah,
both,
yeah.
before I'd even said who it was, they were both just like, is it Azzy FM? And I was like, yeah. And they were both just like, sick, perfect, great match. Like, it's going to work really well. So,
Nice.
and obviously, like, just meeting him,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
just a good dude, isn't he? So,
I'm pretty sure we sent you some voice notes at like 3 a.m, didn't we? Like,
yeah,
that one.
felt really good. I was like really, really ill in bed at a gig I was supposed to be playing and getting paid for.
That was when I was still
not getting paid
drinking.
for.
We got, we had a ridiculous night.
John, you spiteful
He MCs
bastard.
as well. When he gets drunk enough, he did it. Literally, we played
What
at
a
Hyde.
sham.
Yeah, we played at Hyde, which is like a big club in
Oh yeah,
Christchurch.
yeah, it's sick.
He
That
did
was
the
my favourite
classic
night of the tour.
unplug the headphones, plug it into the mic.
Oh what?
And
Oh,
just did
shit.
that. He
And just
honestly,
MC'd into
just
the headphones.
MC'd whilst I was doing it. It was so funny, man.
What a dance.
Yeah, proper old school, man.
The other thing, actually, not from a non-creative standpoint with working with artists is, I think all of us probably know from working with labels and A&R, the bits that were valuable, the bits that were like holding you back, and the bits that were difficult, and the sort of how you would want that relationship to be if you used to do it again.
Definitely.
And it's not even a complaint. I just think it's a learning exercise from working with labels over years. And I'm not even saying for 1 second that the way my relationship with the people that I would work with on my label would be perfect because of the way I've learned it, but it's definitely more informed. And
Yeah.
I think I know the other thing for me as well is like I think my feeling is about putting commercial worth, like never having commercial consideration behind what the output is. Like if Azzy sends me a tune and I think it's sick, I don't really give a fuck if it's going to sell or not. I just have to believe in it, you know, like, yeah. I think when that sort of becomes the first consideration or even like a major consideration, you've sort of dropped the ball in terms of progression and artistry. And that's a broader conversation that I'm really interested in. But I like that Rick Rubin quote where he's like, the best service you can do to your audience is to ignore them.
He's been getting flamed on Twitter recently, Rick Rubin. Have you seen this?
Yeah, because he said something like he doesn't have any technical ability.
So he basically, you know who Rick Rubin is, obviously.
Nah.
Yeah,
Okay, so
he did a big
Rick,
producer, long white hair, long beard.
literally looks like Jesus.
Yeah,
like
okay,
produced like
yeah.
he's
Jay-Z,
produced like and then Slipknot and like literally like
Jake
every
Bug,
big
loads of
okay.
Ed Sheeran, loads of random people.
So he basically did another interview recently. He's done an interview before. He did one with Kendrick, which is recommend you
Proper
watch
sick,
that.
proper sick.
Watch that one. Him and Kendrick sit
That's
down for
actually
an
the
hour.
sample at the end of a tune on my album, the bit where he's talking about jazz music.
Oh yeah, nice.
At the end of So Long on my album, there's like a little bit where he's talking about jazz music and cadence and stuff.
Yeah, that
Sorry,
highly
bring
recommend.
it back to me, yeah?
Yeah. It's all about me. No, highly recommend that interview. So I can't remember who is it. Was it not Wes Anderson? What's his?
Tim Ferriss?
It's one of them.
I listened to the Tim Ferriss one the other day. It's really good.
But anyway, he basically did a quote where he was like, "Yeah, I don't know anything about music. I just like what I like." And basically, people have been calling him like the DJ Khaled of like the white DJ Khaled I've ever seen. So Twitter's too funny.
I think that's like I kind of get what he's saying because,
but I also get what the people are saying as well. It's like, so you basically make all this money, but you don't actually know what you're doing. Type.
But you know, like what I just said about like you almost get to a point where you know too much and you focus too heavily on the technical stuff. It'd be really nice if you could undo all that shit. And it feels like he's gone to great efforts to make sure that he doesn't get too wrapped up in that stuff, so that he can be the creative guy in the room who can sort of push you and prod you into interesting areas that aren't sort of like predicated on your technical ability and your technical sort of nous and all that kind of shit. Yeah. Like he's written the reason I was listening to the podcast because he's got a new book out, and it looks like, I mean, I listened to this podcast when I was driving to Heathrow on Saturday, and I was just like smiling and nodding the whole time because it's literally like, that's what I'm trying to get into in my podcast and my conversation. And it's the sort of thing that really inspires me is like, it's kind of like those oblique strategies, those Brian Eno things where like you turn it over and it gives you a little thought prod.
Do you use those?
No, I don't use those, but I just mean whenever I see his tweets, he puts those tweets out and then he deletes them.
Yeah.
It always, if I was in creative zone or like I was starting the day off and you just picked a random one, it would almost be enough thinking fuel for you to like really get stuck into some proper deep ideas.
Yeah, I did. I tried the oblique strategies thing for a bit, and I think the secret is you can't take it too literally.
Oh yeah, because some of them are fucking
some
random.
Some of them are just random. Yeah. Have you heard about these? So it's basically like a stack of cards. That basically, whenever you get stuck creatively, you just pull one out from a deck, and it's got some sort of
like a prompt.
Yeah, it's got some sort of prompt on it. So it's like just loads of different ones. It's quite sick actually.
Some of them are really,
some of them are
so abstract,
super random though. Yeah,
hey, look, you can do it online. Hang on, let's just see.
Yeah, there's a free version online.
Let's do is it finished?
Never.
Ready? Ready for this one? Who's going to step up for this one? Get your neck massaged.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like some of them are hella random.
What the fuck?
And these are meant to help you creatively.
Ready? This one is just like going against the grain because it goes against everything I just said. But it says spectrum analysis.
Yeah, there you go.
Trust in the you of now.
What the fuck?
I just found out. I don't need a thesaurus anymore. I'm just going to go and get my bars from
Yeah,
it.
to be fair. This is
John, here's one for you that I know you live up to every day. Be dirty.
To be fair, if we're talking about putting distortion on it, that is me. Yeah, just slap.
I thought
riff.
more working from home and lack of showering was the angle I went for.
Nah. Be dirty. I'm translating that as just slap riffed on it 5 times. Yeah, that's what we do.
I'd just love to know why did Spectrasoul end and why did you start Workforce?
Oh, we knew it was coming.
So there's like a private answer to that, and there's like a public answer to that, and yeah, it's a difficult one because ultimately the broad strokes and the broad answer is that we had sort of exhausted everything, and I feel like done a lot, and. Like I said to you earlier, I've got like quite high standards for myself, and I can be quite self-critical. And I felt like a sort of, I can say this like after the fact that taking that really difficult decision that for me turned out, even before I knew it was the right decision, it felt right, was so important in terms of like a mental growth spurt. It was like it was a very key moment for me that I can put my finger on as sort of a time where I did something difficult. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and the outcomes and the fear were not as great. The fear was not as great. It was not as warranted as I thought. Right. Yeah. So yeah, just lots of sort of like practical reasons, really, but also just like it just felt like the right time. I mean, I privately, I've probably spent a lot of time maybe like bitching about it, and yeah, it took a lot of energy up for quite a few years in terms of just the stress around it. I guess it's like a breakup, yeah. Even though you sort of know it's the right thing to do, it still hurts, and it's still scary to go back out in the world after. But there's no sort of like one solid reason. It's just like, I guess I could talk about like things that happen, specific things, but actually the broad strokes are far more interesting to me. Like now I've done the sort of autopsy after the fact, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's kind of simple to me, but there is loads of like complicated, boring shit that people would probably think was interesting clickbait to read about. But I'm not gonna. I'm not that interested in putting that into the world. You know, I'm aware that like amongst my peers, I have this sort of like neggy, moany reputation, right? But I don't think that needs to. Yeah, I don't think it needs to be like publicly out there. Do you know? It's just like.
Yeah.
It's. I guess it's like one of the. I guess like all bands have a tension. Like I'll refer back to like I've watched the Oasis documentary. Like for some reason that tension between those two people produced the art that they produced. Yeah, and Dave and I always had a tension. It wasn't like always sunshine and roses. We argued a lot about what we were doing. We cared passionately individually about what we were doing in the studio, and yeah, I think It worked while it worked, and it was I feel like we signed out at the right time rather than just allowing it to sort of like degenerate into maybe being a bit more sporadic because of the sort of paths that our lives were taking. And
I always say as well, like with that the point you just made about the tension, like I always say like mine and Tom's sound, the Galaxy sound comes from the kind of differences in thought between us. So like I think it should go one way, he thinks it should go the other way, and then the way we work it out, the outcome of that is basically what the Galaxy sound is. So you kind of need that disagreement in a way for it to become something like almost best of both worlds. I don't know if you feel the same as well, Jack, but like
totally agree.
I feel like if both of you just accepted each other's creative decisions all the time, I don't think the sound would be as solid.
The clashes you have with one another as a duo, I think, are as important as the collective decisions you have together.
Yeah, that's
do you know
what
what I mean?
I'm
I think
trying to
they
say,
breed that
that's what I'm
uniqueness that you wouldn't have in the room on your own.
Yeah.
But I also totally understand that when that spark or like is gone, not gone, but when that spark is up,
it's difficult, isn't it? Because real world stuff does have an impact on that. Like, we had worked together for so long, and it got to a point where I was just like, I don't feel like. I feel like I want to do something else.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like it didn't even start out that way. The conversation didn't even start out like I want to do a solo project. It didn't start that way. It just so happened that the circumstances meant that it had to go that way.
Yeah.
And to speak to your point about like the tension and the thing we were just saying about like that being important. To go back to Rick Rubin on this podcast the other day, he was talking about when you've got a band, when he's working with a band that's got multiple songwriters, he always asks that any material that they send him isn't labelled by name so that they can all basically work in best service to the record, so that the best ideas are picked based purely on merit and not because of the will of that person whose idea it is. Because if you're in a room and you're going, my idea is the best, even if it isn't, it doesn't mean it just means that the person with the best will gets their way through. And that was probably the case some of the time with me, to be honest, because I'm quite like, nah, we're doing this. Like if you're in the studio with me, I'm quite often the one who's like, can you just like fuck off, let me get on with it. Thank you. I don't feel as comfortable not in the hot seat, particularly when it's like, I've got an idea and I want to get it going.
Yeah.
So like, that was part of our dynamic too.
Fair. I was actually going to ask. So one of the questions I did actually have written down was, what do you see as the merits of like being a solo artist versus working in a duo? like creatively? You kind of spoke to it in terms of like, you know, the process of decision
and
making.
vice versa, I guess.
And vice versa, yeah.
Yeah, so at the beginning I saw it all as upside because it's like absolute autonomy, but obviously you've not got that person to be like, no, you know what, that's actually shit, like don't go ahead with that idea. Or we need to work on that one more, don't get carried away. So there's pros and cons to that. Yeah, it also depends on the person, doesn't it? Like, yeah, it's a difficult one because I've not really thought about it. I definitely thought when I was sort of in the pits of despair writing an album that I could have done with an objective ear, but I sort of had that in trusted peers. But I sort of learnt a really valuable lesson through that album writing process. So, I can't remember who said it to me, but they said something like, no one cares as much as you do. If you send someone your album and they give you some opinion, you shouldn't take too much from that because no one cares as much as you do. So, and no one necessarily gets the vision as much as you do. So unless it's someone who really, really, really cares about you and really, really, really knows about the music, I don't pay too much attention. I sent the working track list to maybe 8 people, and I learnt through that if I was doing it again, I wouldn't do that again because it kind of muddied the waters, kind of fucked it really, and I didn't get the responses that I wanted, and it was confusing. And
what are you looking for though?
Probably validation, and that's the thing from like working on your own versus working in a duo is you can, if it's like halved and you both believe in it, you can sort of hang your hat on that other person's confidence and be like, well, I'm not alone here, so this other person likes it too, so I'm not as deluded as I think I am, you know. So there's that, but like I wouldn't go back to working in a duo, put it that way. Like it's harder in lots of ways, but much more rewarding in other ways. And also it feels like, there's more like of a progression path that I can see that I'm in total control of. I don't have to do things by consensus, you know, like if I want to buy some studio kit, I'll buy it, whatever. If I want to take 2 months off, I'll do it. If I want to work for a music charity for a year and not really focus on music, I can, and it's not affecting this other person, you know. So yeah, there's sort of pros and cons. I do love collaborating, but I feel like in a duo you're sort of maintaining a relationship a lot of the time, and if you're not, as I was, probably I'm much better now through like many hours of work on it, but like I wasn't a very good communicator at the time. I'm still not a great communicator. I look back on like the way that things often happen in my relationships with labels and people I was collaborating with and with Dave, and probably have some regret, but don't blame myself too hard because it was just me then. I didn't know any better, couldn't do any better. But like, I would say there's so much like personal stuff that comes into it, as both of you know, and you probably know, collaborating with people rich, it's like, you're sort of having to maintain a sort of a rapport and a sort of, there's like an intimacy there as well. I hate to say that word, but it is just, you're up in each other's shit all the time.
It's the weirdest relationship, man. Like, I genuinely describe Tom sometimes as like my other half. It's almost like being married sometimes.
Or is it you're spending hours each weekend with each other? You're spending hours. I mean, fucking Christ, there's points where I just live at Harry's house for like 3-4 days, and then him and Simone have just got me floating around, and like they've just got to put up with that sometimes. And I kind of feel sad. I do feel for him sometimes.
Tom is probably the only person I talk to.
You're a nice guy to have
every day.
Like,
genuinely, Tom's the only person I talk to like every day consistently.
Harry and my wife. Yeah.
Hey, you're married to. You actually are married to.
It's because you don't reply to my texts anymore.
Yeah, because you sent me like 9-minute voice notes and I can't.
They do average about 9 minutes, Rich. You got to bring them down,
You
bro.
are the one person that cannot fucking talk to me about long voice notes,
man.
Jack.
Give me a bullet pointed list. Like, that's all I want. That's all I want. No, but no, it's interesting to hear your take on that. And I guess, obviously me and Jack are looking at it from, I guess, a slightly different angle, obviously, because you've been through such a journey, but it is interesting to hear, because how long was Spectre Soul? 15 years? 10 years?
Yeah, 2000, well, we started working together in 2005.
Yeah.
And then stopped in October 2020. So, I learned loads.
Yeah.
I've mainly, like, about myself, obviously. And it's hard not to reflect, like, and think about had certain things gone different, it would have been XYZ. But like,
Still the best production duo of all time in drum and bass.
Obviously,
so don't watch that.
that's quite hurtful, but
Sorry, mate.
I accept it. Well, no, something that I didn't.
You know I've told you
no,
this
come on.
many times.
I mean, let's just quickly roll out a few that are better. Okay.
No.
Rob Data and Kamal.
Nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Longevity, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on. There's got to be other duos that you like.
I mean, there's
AI?
loads of duos that I like. I like both these duos,
AI?
but like AI are up there for sure.
Bad Company.
Isn't that
Yeah.
trio?
Well,
Am I
true.
being dumb?
Well, still like, okay, are we talking more than one or just duos?
I'm talking
We're like-
duo specifically.
Okay.
I mean, you can bring anything into it for me because it's just the answer's gonna
I
be
was
no.
gonna say some trolley ones, but I'm not because that's just rude. So I'm not gonna do that. Who else? I can't even think. Come on, Jack, you're the guy.
No. I know. I legitly.
Comics.
Yeah, that
New
yeah.
Logic.
It's still
Yeah, New Logic.
New Logic got the longevity and they
yeah.
got the like history, the foundation. But
Just
I
take
love their music.
Take the compliment,
but
man. Take
yeah,
the
you do
compliment.
need to take it. It's
'Cause
just,
I was
it's
gonna
only
say-
my opinion, Jack.
I was gonna
Doesn't
say
make it facts, but
genuinely.
it is for
And I
me.
hate saying this because I know we're pretty close and we talk every day, blah blah blah. But like, Spectre Soul have definitely inspired. I would say our generation of
Yeah,
like drum and bass
totally.
artists. Like, it is definitely one of the biggest inspirations for us. Like for sure.
I
Big
can't
up, big
listen-
up Dave in his absence.
So that's
Yeah,
me
yeah, for
giving.
sure.
That's me giving you lot your flowers. We've spoken about this before. I don't think people do that enough.
Delay No More, like
Yeah,
top five of all
absolute
time for me.
seminal
Like
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate
100,
that,
and
mate.
maybe even like higher.
What
agree.
is your favourite tune on that album? Everybody in this room, just while we're talking about that.
Fucking
Oh,
hell,
yeah,
mate.
that's
You
a good-
asked me
yeah.
that.
I can tell you straight away, it's easy.
Ish Chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mine. I fucking love that tune.
I think the whole thing is just one track to me. It's just like I can listen to that from start to
It's
finish. And
bliss.
that's actually one thing I
Sometimes we lie.
Mi-
I have to say it. That's still my favorite.
I don't honestly.
Can I just like I can make a
can't
really
answer.
like a sort of deep and meaningful point about that album, right? Is that this is the other thing that happens post album is that when you sort of out of practice of producing music, you think back to eras where things were flowing and happening, and you think about what was I doing then that was making that shit happen, yeah. And I've got that with this album I've just done, and I've got it with Delay No More big time in terms of like, and also like when I started the Workforce project, I was writing like 3 or 4 tunes a week. It was kind of crazy, but like, and now I've got no energy for it. But it's kind of torturous to think back to like Delay No More because actually we knew fuck all about mixing and production and mastering and all that kind of shit. I remember sending the masters off to Bo, pre-masters off to Bo, and yeah, if I was to listen to those pre-masters now, I'd probably like, what the fuck are you doing?
That's what you
Like,
say about my pre-masters.
And I remember going up with D-Bridge to master melodies, and we'd made it on this battered old white iMac of mine, right? Really proper piece of shit. And yeah, I remember like he was playing the pre-master out and trying to cut the lacquers, and Darren just going, "What's that click there?" And Bo like pulling it back, and he was like, "Yeah, you got to get rid of that." And me literally just like opening up my laptop, putting a little fade on an audio file, bouncing the thing out again, and just giving it to him, which sounds like the most rudimentary, weird. I would never do that anymore, like ever. It wouldn't be possible to do that with the way that I set up my files now. And also, like, yeah, they just sound budget, but actually it doesn't matter because, like you say, most people don't give a shit.
Oh, you said it already. No one cares as much as you do, man.
first.
Yeah.
Particularly with like mixes, you're like sat there fucking around with like some shakers, thinking, God, they're too harsh. It's like 1% of people will give a shit.
Yeah.
Most people won't care.
Those people are also twats.
Yeah, or they're just yeah. So yeah, it's the thing with Azzy that I see the parallel because he's just not quite there yet. So every time he's like, "Oh, I'm not sure about the mix," I'm like, "Mate, just shut up about the mix, right? You can come to my studio, we'll get the mix sounding good. Don't worry, just write the ideas." And it's almost like trying to save like new producers who are like solely just about vibes and ideas from going down that path of mixing, mastering, plugins, dynamics.
Yeah,
You can
You can
overthink
pay
it.
a professional to help you mix down your tune, but you can't pay a professional to write your tune for you.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. And this is the thing in drum and bass that I think is far too prevalent is this sort of like hang up on
needing to be good at mixing it down
and
yourself.
That being you who's done it. Like,
that's
it has
kind of
any value.
self-perpetuating, though, isn't it? Unfortunately, because the technical.
Yeah, but it's only in drum and bass.
Yeah,
I mean, I do hear a
is.
lot nowadays, like more and more of people that don't, and they're happy to be like, yeah, I don't mix down my stuff. So and so does it for me, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, but cool. Like, I do hear more and more people
the
that
technical.
that
I mean,
like
everyone talks about the loudness, blah 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 blah. But
It's done. Loudness was finished.
Yeah, but like just the whole technical war, kind of that started a long time ago. I don't think that's finished, man. Like, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to be said. Like, just going back to that kind of jump up conversation we had the other day. Like, part of the reason jump up was so good at a point was because of that. Like, it was just like, I don't care about that stuff, man. I'm just putting these funky sounds in. There's a bit of groove in there.
It's rawness.
It's just rawness.
I'm here for the rawness.
Which is like drum and bass still has to be fun to a certain degree.
yeah.
Not all of it, but like there still needs to be an element of fun and groove. My God, groove, please, everyone.
Yeah, it's number one.
Let's keep that going.
Groove is number one.
Yeah,
categorically.
yeah.
And it's sort of like the production stuff is almost the poison because it seems to always come at a cost to the creative often, and like, yeah, it's difficult. I mean, to be honest, that was when I started Must Make podcast. It was because I was so hung up on that idea that ideas should come first. And like I said to you, like, how do we foster and engender the next generation or current generation with the mentality to get involved in the music and commit to the music and not be about phones and about fucking, clips on TikTok and all that kind of shit. It's the same with trying to get people to not get on that bandwagon of production and make it more about ideas. And it's not like I'm not saying I'm out there fighting the crusade to make it all about ideas, but like if no one talks about that at the forefront, then maybe the prevalence of production and loudness and how loud you're thumping your kick and snare are on your sub and mix down. Yeah. We all love a tune because that sounds solid sonically, because that's the nature of drum and bass. It is actually physical as well. It's not just the music, it's how it's experienced in the club, is about how it makes your body feel. So that is important, but it's not obviously, as we all know, it's not the be all and end all. So for me, it's like we responsibility is too big a word, but I do feel like we have a sort of role to play in not pandering to that that sort of short attention span, but also the technical stuff that's just basically, for me, it's like really toxic. It's about like loudness over vibes.
Well, luckily, you've got this massive platform of our podcast to put that message out.
And do you know what, John? Amen.
Yeah. Oi, there you go. Let's just fire off some of these quick fire round questions.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's pick some random ones. So this will be a good one because we talk about it a lot. Musical influences, like what are the key ones? Let's talk about the album specifically, because I'm sure they've changed throughout the period of time, but like for set and setting, what were the main inspirations?
Well, there's really obvious ones within drum and bass, because I felt like those vibes weren't being replicated in the current day. So like obviously Calibre and Photech should be pretty obvious that's in there. To be honest, if you looked at my Spotify, it's really broad, so it's hard to say influences. Burial, but also like as an overarching thing, I always think that I want my music to sound UK. Like there's a very specific UK sound, I feel, and that's sort of drawing on, I guess, the music I've been into while I've been alive, plus like, I guess like Burial, Massive Attack, UK hip hop. And now, like, also, this is the weird one, working with young kids, I knew fuck all about drill, but every time they turn up, I'm like, what sort of music do you want to do? They're like, drill, every time.
Mate.
And it's mate, I knew nothing about it, and nothing about any of the people.
Didn't you work, who was the guy that went through, was it RD that went through?
Yeah, so RD came through Audio Active.
Didn't he? Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, it's
wild. I did a couple months a few years back working in a pro, and I was just completely oblivious to drill music, and I was doing a similar thing as yourself, like where going in and just kind of being like, shall we work on some music? Anything I can help you with, like I'm here. But all they wanted to do was just like,
right, sure.
They showed me like these websites where you get all of this music and stuff, and they were showing me software, like free DJ software that I'd never heard of, and all this sort of stuff. And it was mind-blowing. It's a whole other world.
It's wild because whether you like the music or not, it's super inspiring because you see, like, honestly, the energy in these kids, and and it made me sort of like go down a bit of a rabbit hole listening to sort of some of the stuff that they were playing, because they often turn up and you're like, right, let's listen to some music to start with, and they put on that Nines guy. Never heard of him before.
Yeah.
Albums came out of jail, didn't they?
Mate, I don't know anything about the guy, like, so if he's been a prick or been like an abuser or whatever, maybe I shouldn't like him, but whatever. But I listened to the music just on merit, and I was like, this is sick.
Yeah.
Influence is a really difficult one. It's not just music for me. I can tell you someone that I'm really into at the minute, and it's kind of a weird one, and I'm hoping to spread the word because they're really good. They're called, I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's called Jadu Heart, or Jadu Heart.
I'm not heard
Mate,
of that.
everyone should go and listen to Jadu Heart. A song called Woman. It's fucking sick, and it's got, we were talking earlier about random sounds that sound like they shouldn't fit. It's got one of them that just pops out the blue, and it's just, honestly, I've listened to it about 50 times since I discovered it like 2 months ago, and it's proper.
Do you know what I mean? We were talking about we were doing the what are we listening to at the moment thing, and whilst you're mentioning this, Harry put me on to something that I'm a little bit late on this apparently, but Amapiano.
Yeah. No heard of it. What's that?
So it's like a dance music that's kind of come from South Africa,
yeah,
but it's got this weird like UK flavour to it. It's got like garage and bass line kind of elements in there. But what I love about it is that you'll get this kind of, it's like a progressive, it never feels like it's always building and just constantly building throughout the music. But you'll just get this one random like little bass stab once in a 7-minute tune. Like, and you just get it once randomly.
South Africa's actually got some mad music,
I'm just saving it now.
Yeah.
What's that? I think they're from South Africa, duo DJ lot, and they did like a sort of keep hush type thing, and they went viral for a dance and a song. Fuck, what are they called? Come back, like
I know the video you're talking about.
And there's this like tune that they play, and they're doing this dance to it, and it's proper what, and it's like that
probably would have been an Amapiano tune,
yeah, maybe that was yeah,
that genre has absolutely blown up in the UK. Okay, I always like this one. What's the maddest rider you've ever seen backstage? Doesn't have to be yours, can be someone else's. You don't have to name names. I just want to know what was on it.
This is probably going to be a really boring answer. I can't really remember any, to be honest.
Yeah.
I remember hearing a story that apparently like Annie Mac was booked to play a club in Brighton, and she had this really decadent rider, and sorry if I'm slandering you if you're listening to this, Annie. I don't know this is for sure. I've just heard this secondhand, right? But that she apparently had this decadent rider, but also had like a wedding party before that was coming in the weeks to come. So sort of turned up, like someone came in with her, just scooped up all the rider, walked out. She DJ'd, didn't touch any of it, just took it off for the party and then like left.
Well, so just wanted to get discounted beverages for a wedding.
Or just like getting promoters to pay for the booze that's required at your party.
That's kind of genius.
Like, if I've misremembered that and appropriated it to the wrong person, I really apologise, because like I'm sure hundreds of DJs have done that. I just remember hearing that story anyway.
I knew a D&B artist that did that before his wedding. Basically had gin for like 2 months, then changed it to vodka for 2 months, then same thing, and was like checking in a bag and shit just to get it back, and apparently just had free alcohol at his wedding completely. Wow. It's a lot of effort to go for just for free booze. Patterning the game though still.
Yeah, fair. Cost of living crisis, I rate it.
It was about 10 years ago, but yeah.
It never went away, mate. We had a tourist for a long time.
It's not going to that rabbit hole.
No, that's a whole podcast in itself. I think you've already answered this question, to be fair. If you weren't doing music, what other creative, what other career path would you choose? And it would be a chefing...
graphic designer.
Yeah.
With motion thrown in, probably.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, in that case, then what we'll do is...
What's on your feet?
Oh yeah, what's on your feet?
Mate, I really should have been warned about this segment, right? The trainers that I'm wearing are like 7 years old, and I sort of like, where I moved house, I just chucked a load of old ones in a bag ages ago. And then before I went to Australia, New Zealand, I was sort of like, when you've got all your old clothes in a
lot of excuses right now.
when you've got shoes in your suitcase that you need to empty out so you can use your suitcase. Yeah, I found these trainers. I was like, cool, these are quite nice. Look at these.
What are they? Roshis?
They are nice.
They're Nike Roshi runs. I'm not sitting there for a minute.
Exactly, that's what I mean. That's why they're super old. But I got them out and I was like, you know what? With a bit of a clean, they'll be all right.
Be all right.
And, yeah, they're pretty comfortable.
Yeah, so maybe if you can just do that again, but towards that camera, that'd be great. There they are. Very nice. Jack, what you got on?
I'm not going to get my feet up in the air too high because I can't really, but I've got just some high top dunks on.
Yeah,
Just-
you're a dunks guy, aren't you?
I do love mate.
You love a dunk. Yeah.
A couple years ago, I
Rich,
treated
I know you
myself
got
to
the
you can
to a
tell
pair
me
of
what
dunks.
I'm
Ugly.
wearing.
It's got a ridiculous.
So Rich is sporting some Air Max 1 ugly ducklings, but I'm realizing now I know too much about trainers.
Yeah,
Speaking
I
about-
mean, you knew the answer to that,
Like,
and I
it
didn't.
was ridiculous. And I'm also wearing dunks. I've only worn these twice so far, so these are fairly fresh.
Cool.
Just some blue and blue dunks.
This
Did you get
segment
any
is
cops today? There were teardrops this
nah,
morning.
man, I'm on a bit of a trainer hiatus, man. Like, you see in my house, like, I've run out of space. I've literally run out of space for trainers.
This segment
Got my
is
first pair of
specifically for
Jordans
you
today.
and your
It is.
possibly 100
It's
pair
because
of
I
trainers.
want to launch a career as a trainer influencer, and this is my platform to do it. It's my launch pad to do it off. So
Air Jordan, if you're listening, sponsor us.
hit me up.
I kind of got to a point where I was like, when I've got like 3 or 4 boxed, unworn pairs of trainers, whenever I sort of would go on a website and start looking at them, I'd always go, just remember that you've got 3 pairs you ain't worn there. So regardless, don't buy any more. Like,
You sound like my wife.
yeah, well,
This is what she tells me
This- the
every
thing is,
week when a new fucking pair of
Yeah, you're quite bad. You're quite
Bruv, it's
bad.
gone so bad the last 2
Yeah,
years.
I'd love to be able to
got
blame
about
someone
40 pairs
else.
now.
I'd love to be able to blame someone else for my like decline in trainer buying, but my missus has probably 3 times the amount of pairs of shoes that I've got, so
All
I can't
respect
possibly like blame her.
See,
Yeah.
I spent 6 months telling her she had to reduce the number of shoes she had because she didn't have loads. She had like 50 pairs.
What I'm
now
hearing-
I'm like pushing 40.
serious hypocrisy.
Like, yeah, it's peak, man. I feel so bad.
Yeah. Cool. So
There's also better things to worry about in life.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there?
Valid.
Is there? Don't know.
When you're DJing, no one can see your feet.
It's true. It's true. But when you do the TikTok content about the way to the club, that's what you got to get onto that one, Jack.
I thought we've just spent the last like hour and a half
Nah,
talking about
man.
not pandering to children. Right?
I love TikTok. Have you not seen Galaxy been stepping up? So here we go.
I'm not going to lie. In terms of like dog and funny content, TikTok is far better than Instagram.
Yeah, yeah.
Far better for funny shit.
The algorithm's popping,
Definitely.
to be fair.
There's just no rules.
Although
It's like
I will
Wild
say,
West on there,
my
man.
TikTok algorithm, and I've got to have words with Tom about this, but Tommy
Has he been like, he's been
Tits.
fucking it up?
Loads of tits.
No, Tommy Robinson video. I think I told you about this.
What?
Somehow there was about a week where just bare Tommy Robinson videos
No,
kept
do you
popping
know
up.
what? This happened to
It
me and
was
Harry. We got one where it's
so-
just pure Andrew Tate for a
Yeah,
pure week.
it's
Like,
so sus.
get some real weird, like
So
opposite-ended
I
content.
think the problem
sometimes.
is I actually don't scroll on TikTok enough for it to know what I actually like. Like,
Yeah,
genuinely, I don't
really.
actually spend enough time on it for it to build up a. Anyway, that's not important. Last bit. It's called
Free Andrew Tate, is that what you're saying?
free my boy Top G. No,
Yeah, fuck that guy.
no.
Fuck that
Fuck
guy.
that
Yeah,
guy. Don't
piece of
edit this.
shit.
Don't edit this to make me look like a Top G supporter.
No,
please.
absolutely not.
Please.
Absolutely
Thank
not.
you.
Never.
So last bit's just a shameless plug, mate. So anything you've got to push, shows, releases, could be. Well, you spoke about Azzies. Yeah. Whatever,
So
whatever you like.
end of Feb, new Azzy FM 6-track EP. It's really fucking good. He's super talented, so if you could support him, that'd be great. I'm gonna do. I've got a little release that's gonna come out probably around the end of it, first anniversary of the album. Yeah, I'm sort of taking it as it comes at the minute. It's nothing for me to really plug.
Any more plans for high grade merch?
Hot sauce coming in 2023. Definitely. Although, like, I might like plug it on my page, but it probably won't be Must Make or Workforce affiliated. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I haven't made a plan for 2023 yet. Maybe some more high grade merch. But like,
Any
I don't know if you've
Workforce and Friends Volume 3, maybe.
Workforce and Friends. Oh yeah. Probably, yeah. So we got that coming up. We got Volume 2 has been recorded with your good self, John. That's going to be. I've got to edit and put that together, and hopefully we'll get that out around the time of Azzy's release. I think that's the plan. And then, yeah, we're going to keep doing those. Actually, they're really fun. The live streams.
Yeah, that was a really good vibe, man.
Yeah, and yeah, those are going to be ongoing. I'm not sure. Well, it depends when this is going out. I would plug some shows, but like, I've been show's been really good so far this year. So just want to shout out all the promoters I played for so far.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Beautiful. Well, massive thank you for coming down, mate.
Of course, thank you for
man.
having me.
It's a big
Really
honour.
appreciate it.
We're all big fans, and it was a lovely chat.
Deep and meaningful.
Also, I do
always.
feel like there's so many things we didn't talk about potentially.
Like what? Come on.
No,
quick,
no,
let's
no,
just
no,
thrash
no,
them out
no,
real
no,
quick.
No. Let's just say that you have to come back and do a part 2.
Sure.
Yeah,
And
that's a
then
shout.
because as always, there's a lot of shit to talk about.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely get that going.
If you let me blather on, I will, and I'll just waste all
this is
the
the thing.
time.
You're like a wind-up toy. Just watch you go, innit? Like, it's perfect.
Yeah, get me on an issue, I'll just fucking harp on forever about it. Yeah.
That's kind of what you want in a podcast, though. Like, that's kind of what you want.
I like it when we don't end up asking any questions because it just flows. It's exactly what you want.
Do you mean by flow? Do you mean Jack just blathering on, fucking absolute twaddle?
We're here for a reason, mate.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we came for.
Yeah, just lessen my workload. Let him talk a bit more.
There we go.
It's been casual for me today. Exactly.
So yeah, that's been episode 2 of season 2. We're on a roll, and we'll catch you next time with special guest Lens. So that'll be fun. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Peace.